This story is titled "I Caught My Fiancée Kissing Her Ex at Our Engagement Party." When I confronted her, she just brushed it off and said, "You're overreacting," like I was the problem. She even mocked me. I didn't say anything in that moment, but the next day, she was blowing up my phone, call after call, almost hysterical. But before I get into everything, I just want to say something quickly. If you're watching this, it would really help if you subscribed. The channel's been losing a bit of traction lately, and something as simple as subscribing makes a huge difference. It's quick, it's free, and it helps keep content like this coming. Your support genuinely means a lot. Alright, now let's get into it. So, hey guys, I'm a 28-year-old guy, and last night I walked out of my own engagement party. Since then, my phone hasn't stopped going off. Calls, texts, voicemails, non-stop. I haven't responded to any of it yet because honestly, I just need some perspective before I completely lose my mind. I've always been the cautious type when it comes to relationships. My friends actually joke about it. They call me Safety Jacks because I don't rush into anything. I like to take my time, pay attention to red flags, think things through carefully. That's just how I've always been wired. But all of that changed when I met Zelina 2 years ago. We matched on Hinge, and to be completely honest, she was way out of my league. Like, way prettier than anyone who had ever swiped right on me before. I remember going into our first date fully expecting to get ghosted afterward. But instead, we ended up talking for hours. It just clicked. She was smart, confident, and had this kind of laugh that made everyone around her feel lighter. I was hooked from day one. After that, things moved fast. Faster than I was used to. We moved in together after just 8 months, which, for me, was a big step. But it felt right at the time. Then, after almost 2 years together, I proposed. It was during a hike to this lookout point she absolutely loved. She cried, said yes, and some random hikers nearby even took pictures of the moment for us. Felt perfect. Like everything had fallen into place exactly the way it was supposed to. But that's also where things started getting complicated. Zelina's family has money. Not billionaire-level rich or anything, but definitely the kind of people who belong to country clubs and take yearly European vacations. Her dad, Takis, owns a financial advisory firm that manages retirement funds for businesses across the state. He's successful, no doubt about that, and he never misses an opportunity to remind me that I'm not. I run my own solar panel installation business. I started it 3 years ago after working under someone else and learning the trade. Now I've got 4 employees and a steady flow of work. I'm proud of what I've built. It's not flashy, but it's real. Still, Takis always treats it like a joke. "How's the roof climbing business?" he asks every time I see him, like he can't be bothered to remember what I actually do. Zelina would always tell me to ignore him. She'd say she didn't care about status or money or any of that, and I believed her. So, our engagement party was last month. It was held at their country club. Nothing insanely over the top, but still pretty nice. Around 70 people, open bar, a jazz band playing softly in the corner. Everything was going smoothly, until he showed up. Draven, Zelina's college ex. The guy she dated for about 4 years before we met. He walked in like he belonged there, tall, perfect hair, expensive suit. The kind of guy who works at some investment firm and drives a car worth more than everything I own combined. I nearly choked on my drink. I found Zelina talking to some of her cousins and pulled her aside. "Why is your ex here?" I asked. She gave me this look, like I was being completely unreasonable. "His parents are friends with mine. It would have been weird not to invite him." "You didn't think to mention that to me beforehand?" "Honestly, I didn't think it mattered," she said casually. "We broke up years ago. It's not a big deal." But it felt like a big deal. Because after that, I couldn't stop noticing the way she kept looking at him across the room. Every time I glanced over, she seemed to be checking where he was. I tried to convince myself I was just being paranoid. I really did. I forced myself to act normal, talk to her family, thanked people for coming, played the part. I even tried to ignore the way Takis introduced me to his golf buddies. "This is Zelina's fiancé. He does solar things." Real subtle. About an hour into the party, I realized I hadn't seen Zelina in a while. At first, I assumed she was in the bathroom or talking to relatives somewhere. But after 20 minutes, I started actively looking for her. I checked the main hall, the patio, even asked one of her friends if she'd seen her. Nothing. There was a hallway leading to some smaller rooms and the coat check area. I hadn't checked there yet, so I headed that way, just thinking I'd find her, and maybe we could take some pictures together or something. And that's when everything fell apart. I turned the corner and saw her. She was standing with Draven in a small alcove near the coat room. They were close. Too close. His hand was on her waist, and they were kissing. Not aggressively, not like they were making out, but it was still a real kiss. The kind of kiss between two people who know exactly what they're doing. They didn't notice me at first. I just stood there, completely frozen, like an idiot. It felt as if someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my entire body. Couldn't move, couldn't speak. My mind just refused to process what I was looking at. For a few seconds, everything around me went quiet, like the world had muted itself. Then Draven noticed me. He pulled back casually, adjusting his tie as if nothing had happened. No panic, no guilt, not even surprise. Just this strange, almost amused half-smile that instantly made my blood boil. I swear, in that moment I wanted to punch him. Zelina turned around next. And honestly, her reaction hit me harder than the kiss itself. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked annoyed, like I had just interrupted something mildly inconvenient. "Jax," she sighed, as if I was the problem here. "Don't make this into a big thing." It took me a second, but I finally found my voice. "What's going on here?" She actually rolled her eyes. Not even subtly. Fully rolled her eyes at me. "It was just a quick goodbye kiss," she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. "We have history together. It's really not that serious." I stared at her, trying to make sense of what she was saying. "You are kissing your ex at our engagement party?" I said slowly, like I had to spell it out because she somehow didn't understand the situation. "It was barely even a kiss," she replied, casually fixing her lipstick like we were discussing the weather. "We dated for 4 years, Jax. We're still friends. Don't be so insecure about it." Before I could even respond, Draven shoved his hands into his pockets and added, "Yeah, man, we were just talking about old times. No need to make it weird." I think that's the exact moment something inside me just shut off. All the anger, the confusion, the hurt, it just went quiet. I felt strangely calm, almost detached, like I was watching this happen to someone else instead of living it myself. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just nodded, turned around, and started walking away. "Jax," Zelina called after me. "Don't you dare make a scene right now." But I didn't stop. I didn't look back at her, didn't look at anyone. I just walked straight through the party, past all the people, the music, the laughter, grabbed my jacket from the coat check, and headed straight outside. By the time I reached the parking lot, my phone was already buzzing nonstop. "Zelina, where did you go?" "Zelina, answer your phone." "Zelina, you're being completely immature." "Zelina, my dad is asking where you went." "Zelina, OMG, you're embarrassing me so much." I didn't reply to a single message. I just turned my phone off, got into my car, and drove. I didn't even know where I was going at first. I just knew I needed to get as far away from that place as possible. Eventually, without really thinking about it, I ended up at my friend Kai's place. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and immediately knew something was wrong. "Bro, what happened?" he asked, stepping aside to let me in. We went out to his balcony, and I told him everything. Every single detail. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to give advice or jump to conclusions. He just listened, letting me get it all out. When I finally finished, he leaned back and asked quietly, "What are you going to do?" I shook my head. "I don't know, but I can't marry her. Not after this." He nodded like he already expected that answer. "You can crash here as long as you need." And that's how I ended up sleeping on Kai's gaming couch. Which, by the way, is definitely not designed for someone my height. I barely got any sleep, just laying there, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone was flooded with notifications. Missed calls, texts, voicemails, all from Zelina and her dad. It was insane. Watching Zelina's messages from overnight was like watching all 5 stages of grief play out in real time. First, anger. How could I embarrass her like that? Then her dad chiming in, furious, calling me immature. Then denial and bargaining. The kiss wasn't what I thought. Draven meant nothing. I was overreacting. But the voicemails from Atakis, those were something else. At first, he was straight up threatening. You better get back here and apologize to my daughter for embarrassing her like this. We have guests from out of town who came specifically for this party. This is completely unacceptable behavior. Then he switched tones, trying to sound calm and reasonable, but still dripping with condescension. Jax, I understand you might be upset, but this is not how adults handle their problems. Call me back so we can discuss this situation like men. I didn't respond to any of it. I just turned my phone off again and sat there, trying to think. Kai had already left for work, so I was alone in his apartment for most of the day. And that's when everything really started to sink in. Not just what happened at the party, but everything leading up to it. Zelina and I had been together for 2 years. And in that time, there were all these little things I'd ignored. The comments she used to make about my business. Once you get bigger clients, or when you can afford to hire more people. Always implying that what I had built wasn't enough yet. The way she introduced me to her rich friends. This is Jack. He owns his own business. And then she'd just leave it at that, never actually explaining what I did. Like she was embarrassed. And the way she always sided with her dad whenever he made those snide remarks about my work. The jokes about upgrading my wardrobe. The time she'd mentioned Draven, then suddenly changed the subject like there was more she wasn't saying. I started realizing just how many red flags I had ignored. All because I was so into her. And sitting there, alone, replaying everything in my head, I finally saw it clearly. By around 3 p.m. By around mid-afternoon, I'd made up my mind. I needed to go back to the apartment and get my things while she was still at work. I didn't want to risk running into her. Didn't want another conversation, another round of excuses. So I texted my employee Marcus, asked if he could help me move some stuff. He didn't hesitate. He showed up with his truck within an hour. Real one. We went straight to the apartment and I got to work. I didn't take everything, just what I absolutely couldn't live without. Essentials. Clothes, some personal stuff, a few important things that mattered to me. Whatever could fit into Marcus's truck and my car. The whole thing took about 2 hours, maybe a little more, but I didn't waste time thinking. I just moved. Before I left, I stood in the kitchen for a second, looking around at what used to feel like home. Then I took out my grandma's ring, the one I had proposed to Zelina with, and placed it gently on the counter. Next to it, I left a simple note. Just 2 words. Goodbye kiss. That was it. After that, I walked out, got in my car, and didn't look back. As soon as I was gone, I blocked her number. Then her social media. Everywhere. I knew myself well enough to understand that if I gave her even a small chance to talk, she would try to twist things, minimize what happened, make me question my own reaction, maybe even convince me to give her another chance. And honestly, I didn't have the energy for any of that anymore. That night, apparently, she went looking for me. She showed up at Kai's place, but I wasn't there. Marcus and I had gone out to grab dinner after moving everything. While we were eating, Kai texted me. Your girl just showed up at my door crying. I told her you weren't here and I didn't know when you'd be back. She thinks I'm lying. Just a heads up. I just stared at the message for a moment, then put my phone down. When I got back to Kai's later that night, there was a letter taped to the door with my name on it. I already knew who it was from before I even opened it. Inside was this long, rambling apology from Zelina. She wrote about how the kiss just happened, how it didn't mean anything. Said she and Draven were just talking about old times and got caught up in the moment. She kept repeating that it was nothing, a mistake, something small. Then she shifted tone, saying she was devastated that I would throw away our entire future over one tiny slip-up. At the end, she begged me to call her. I didn't even finish it properly. I tore the letter into pieces and threw it straight into the trash. The next morning, I woke up with a clear plan. I spent most of the day calling wedding vendors, canceling everything. I had paid for about half of the deposits myself, even though her parents were covering most of the wedding. I had insisted on contributing my share back then, thinking it mattered. Now it just felt like another loose end to tie up. Surprisingly, most of the vendors were understanding. Some of them even offered partial refunds when I explained what had happened. It wasn't a great conversation to have over and over again, but it was necessary. I was just finishing up the last cancellation call when my phone rang. Unknown number. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Part of me thought it might be Zelina calling from someone else's phone. But for some reason, I answered. "Jax, don't hang up," the voice said quickly. "Draven, of course. We should talk about what happened." "There's nothing to talk about," I replied flatly. "Look, man, I just want to explain. That kiss wasn't planned or anything. Zelina and I were just catching up, talking about college days, and it just sort of happened. It didn't mean anything." I let out a short, humorless breath. "So you randomly kiss all your exes when you're catching up? Or just the ones who are engaged?" He sighed on the other end. "It was a mistake. One-time thing. Ella loves you, man. She's a mess right now." "Cut the crap," I said, my voice sharper now. "Why do you even care?" There was a brief pause. "I just don't want to be the reason someone's relationship ends," he said finally. "That's not cool." "You're not the reason," I replied. "Zelina made her choice when she kissed you back. And I made mine when I walked out. We're done here." I didn't wait for him to respond. I hung up and blocked his number immediately. Later that afternoon, her dad called. Actually, he called multiple times before I finally picked up. "What?" I said as soon as I answered. "We need to discuss the situation with you and my daughter," he said, his tone calm, controlled, all business. "There's nothing to discuss. We're done. Don't be hasty. Everyone makes mistakes. Zelina feels terrible about what happened." I paused for a second, then asked, "Is she sorry it happened? Or sorry I saw it?" There was a brief silence on the line. "Jax," he continued, adjusting his tone. "I understand you're upset, but perhaps we can come to some kind of arrangement to handle this quietly." I frowned. "What does that mean?" "Well, I know your business is still growing," he said. "Perhaps you could use some financial assistance. A loan to help expand. In exchange, you and Zelina could postpone the wedding. Work through this rough patch." For a moment, I genuinely couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you trying to bribe me to stay with your daughter after she cheated?" "I wouldn't put it that way," he replied smoothly. "I'm offering to help smooth things over during a difficult time." "No thanks," I said, and hung up. I sat there for a while after that, staring at my phone. I didn't understand why he was so desperate to keep the engagement intact. It wasn't like he ever liked me that much in the first place. But at that point, I didn't care anymore. Whatever his reasons were, they didn't matter. I was done. And that's where things stand right now. I'm still staying at Kai's place, trying to figure out what my next move is. I've told a few close friends what happened, but I'm not going around bad-mouthing Zelina to everyone we know. When people ask why I moved out so suddenly, I just tell them the truth. Simple as that. The weird part is, I'm not even that angry anymore. I expected to be furious, to feel rage or something, but instead, it's like a switch just flipped off inside me the moment I saw them together. Everything just ended. I gave that relationship everything I had. And in the end, it still wasn't enough. Because she still wanted something else. Or someone else. I think what hurt the most wasn't even the kiss itself. It was the way she reacted when I caught them. Like somehow I was the problem for being upset about it. There was no real guilt, no instant apology, nothing genuine at all. Just irritation. Like I was overreacting and making a big deal out of catching my own fiancée kissing her ex at our engagement party. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. I've got a lead on an apartment I can move into next week, so I'm taking things one day at a time. That's all I can really do. But I keep thinking about it, going over everything in my head, And I just want to ask, am I exaggerating here? Anyway, I'll keep you updated. Update 1. Hey guys. It's been a week since the whole engagement party disaster, and a lot has happened since then. First off, I found an apartment and signed a 6-month lease. It's nothing special, just a simple 1-bedroom in a decent area, but it's mine. Completely mine. And Zelina has no idea where it is. I moved in 3 days ago with whatever I had managed to grab from our old place. I'll need to get proper furniture at some point, but for now it's pretty bare. Mattress on the floor, TV sitting on top of a plastic storage bin, laptop nearby. Basically living that bachelor life. Not exactly glamorous, but honestly, it feels peaceful. I thought moving into a new place would give me some distance, some space to think clearly. But Zelina had other plans. Since she couldn't reach me by phone, still blocked everywhere, she decided to show up at my work site on Monday. I run a solar panel installation business, and that day we were working on a house out in the suburbs. Pretty nice place. I was up on the roof with 2 of my guys, focused on the installation, when Marcus, who was down on the ground, called up to me. Boss, he said, looking a bit unsure. There's someone here to see you. Looks like your fiancée. Ex-fiancée, I corrected automatically as I started climbing down. When I reached the ground, I saw her. Zelina was standing there in heels and this expensive-looking dress, completely out of place among the trucks, tools, and equipment. She looked like she belonged at a high-end brunch, not a construction site. To make things worse, the homeowner had stepped outside to see what was going on, which made the whole situation even more awkward. We need to talk, she said, not even bothering to lower her voice. I'm working, I replied, gesturing around us. You've been ignoring all my calls and texts, she shot back. You moved out without even talking to me. You're acting ridiculous. I looked at her, calm but firm. I'm acting like someone who caught his fiancée kissing another man. What exactly did you expect? She glanced briefly at the customer watching us, then lowered her voice just a little. That was nothing. A stupid mistake. One little kiss. You're throwing away our entire relationship over it. If it was nothing, I asked, keeping my voice steady, why were you doing it? Draven and I were just talking, she said quickly. He leaned in. It just happened. It meant nothing. Same excuses. Same dismissive tone. I didn't even bother responding this time. There was nothing left to say. I turned and started walking back toward the house, ready to get back to work. So that's it? She called after me. 2 years together and you're just done? I stopped, turned back, and met her eyes. Yep. Her expression hardened. Unbelievable. Then she shook her head, her eyes narrowing. You know what? This is probably for the best. I was settling anyway. Settling? I repeated, a little surprised despite everything. Look at you, she said, gesturing at my work clothes. Climbing around on roofs for a living, driving that beat-up truck, living paycheck to paycheck. You really think that's the kind of life I want? That's the kind of man I deserve? I just smiled. No, I said quietly. I don't think that's what you deserve at all. She blinked, clearly not expecting that. You deserve exactly what you're getting, I continued. And I deserve better than you. Behind me, the older lady who owned the house actually let out a soft, ooh, like she was watching a scene unfold in real time. Zelina's face flushed. You'll regret this, she snapped. No one will ever love you like I did. That's what I'm counting on, I replied, giving a small nod. Then I turned my back on her and walked toward my crew. Back to work, guys. These panels aren't going to install themselves. A second later, I heard her car door slam, followed by the sharp rev of her engine as she sped off. The homeowner came over and gently patted my arm. Seems like you dodged a bullet there, honey. I gave her a small, polite smile and went back to work, but my mind wasn't really there anymore. I kept replaying what Zelina had said, the way she talked about my job, my life, like it was something beneath her. And it made me wonder, had she always felt that way? Had she always seen me as less than her? That evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Hi Jax, this is Nix. We haven't met, but I think we need to talk. I'm Draven's girlfriend. I stared at the message, confused. Wait, what? Draven has a girlfriend? The same Draven who was kissing my fiancée at our engagement party? I didn't know what to make of it, but I was curious enough to respond. We agreed to meet for coffee the next day. When I met Nix, she turned out to be nothing like I expected. Purple hair, laid-back vibe, works as a graphic designer. She seemed cool, straightforward, and she didn't waste any time getting to the point. Draven's been cheating on me with Zelina for months, she said, pulling out her phone. I found their messages last week, Nix said, her tone steady but heavy, like she'd already gone through the shock and landed somewhere closer to exhaustion. Then she showed me, screenshot after screenshot, texts between Draven and Zelina going back at least 4 months. And these weren't just casual conversations or friendly check-ins. They were making plans, meeting up, talking about hotels they'd stayed at together. There were even explicit messages, things I honestly didn't need to read, things that made my stomach turn. And then one message hit harder than all the rest. It was from just 2 weeks before our engagement party. Zelina had written, Jax's business connections are perfect for helping me launch my interior design company. Once that's running, we'll figure us out. I felt sick, not just because she'd been cheating on me, but because she'd been using me, using everything I'd built. I've spent years forming relationships with contractors and property developers through my solar business. That network meant something, took time, effort, trust. And to her, it was just leverage. How did you find all this? I asked, still staring at the screen. Draven left his iPad logged into his messages at our apartment, Nix explained. I wasn't snooping. I was just going to watch Netflix. But the messages popped up. She let out a quiet breath. Once I started reading, it all made sense. All those business dinners, networking events, they weren't work. They were meetups with Zelina. She scrolled further, showing me more proof. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges on shared credit card statements, even a reservation for the night before my engagement party. The kiss you saw, she said, meeting my eyes, wasn't some random thing. They've been seeing each other regularly. The night before your party, Draven told me he had a late client meeting. He was actually with Zelina at the Westbrook Hotel downtown. At that point, everything started connecting. All those nights Zelina said she was working late, or out having drinks with friends. The way she'd sometimes flip her phone face down the second I walked into the room. The way she'd get defensive if I asked simple questions about her day. It had all been there. I just didn't want to see it. I'm sorry, Nix said softly. I thought you should know. Don't be sorry, I told her, handing the phone back. Thank you for showing me. This just confirms I made the right decision walking away. She nodded, but there was a bitterness in her expression. I wish I'd known sooner. I wasted 3 years with Draven. 3 years, I repeated. So he was with you the entire time I was with Zelina? Looks that way, she said grimly. We compared timelines, piecing things together, and realized there were at least 15 to 20 different times when Zelina and Draven had claimed to be somewhere else. But were actually together. After I left the coffee shop, still trying to process everything, I got a call from Senna, one of Zelina's friends. We'd always gotten along pretty well, so I was surprised to hear from her. I can't believe what she's saying about you, Senna said as soon as I picked up. What is she saying? I asked, not really expecting anything good. She's telling everyone you were controlling and jealous, and that she's glad you broke up. Is that right? I said, honestly not that surprised. It's total BS and I know it, Senna replied firmly. I can't just sit back and listen to her lie anymore. That's why I'm calling. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. I suspected something was going on between her and Draven for a while, she admitted. I should have said something. You knew? I asked. Not for sure, she said quickly. But about 2 months ago, I saw them together at a restaurant. Zelina had told me she was visiting her mom that day. When I brought it up later, she got really defensive and made me promise not to say anything to you. That made me pause. So even her friends had seen it coming. Interesting, I muttered. So people around her knew something was going on. There's more, Senna added. Of course there was. She's throwing a freedom party this weekend at that new club downtown. She's invited everyone. She's calling it her celebration of dodging a bullet. She hesitated for a second, then added, Draven's going to be there, as her date. I let out a short laugh. Good for them. Hope they have fun. I sent you the invitation, Senna said. I thought you should know what she's saying about you. After we hung up, I checked my email. Sure enough, there it was. An invite to Zelina's so-called freedom celebration. The picture showed her smiling like nothing had ever happened, with a caption that read, Finally free and living my best life. Without really thinking about it, I forwarded the invitation to Attakis. No message. Just sent it. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Takis. What is the meaning of this? He demanded the second I answered. I just thought you'd want to know what your daughter's up to while you're busy trying to save her engagement. I replied calmly. Where did you get this invitation? Does it matter? I said. Your daughter is publicly celebrating our breakup with the same guy she was cheating on me with. The same guy she was kissing at the engagement party you threw for us. There was a long silence on the other end. This is unacceptable, he finally said, his voice tight. After everything I've done. And then he hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment. I wasn't planning on going to Zelina's party, obviously. I had better things to do with my weekend. But what Attakis said stuck with me. After everything I've done. Something about that didn't sit right. Something weird was definitely going on with her family. So I decided to make a call. My friend Raven works as a reporter at a local business journal. If anyone knew about financial gossip in town, it was her. Hey Raven, I said when she picked up. Quick question. Have you heard anything about Bennett Financial Advisors lately? Anything unusual going on? There was a pause. Wait, you didn't know? She said. Know what? They're under investigation by state regulators, she replied. How did you hear about it? I went quiet for a second. I didn't, I said slowly. Not until now. What kind of investigation? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Compliance issues with client accounts, Raven replied. Nothing public yet, but it's serious. Several big clients are already quietly pulling their money. Why are you asking about Attakis's company? I gave her a quick version of everything that had happened, and as I spoke, something clicked into place in my head. Attakis's sudden desperation, the bribe, the pressure to keep the engagement intact. It all made sense. A big, expensive family wedding would make everything look stable, successful, like nothing was wrong. And when your company is under investigation, that kind of image matters. Nothing says everything's fine, like throwing money around on a lavish wedding. I hung up with Raven and immediately texted Attakis. I know about the regulatory investigation. No reply. For about an hour, nothing. Then my doorbell rang. I walked over and peeked through the peephole. And there he was, Attakis Bennett himself. Somehow he had tracked down my new address like some kind of rich people GPS. I opened the door, but I didn't invite him in. Jax, he said, smooth as ever, all business. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Can we talk? Against my better judgment. Seriously, I don't know why I do this. I stepped aside and let him in. My place looked exactly how it felt. Half empty. Mattress on the floor, a cheap folding table, 2 mismatched chairs that probably cost less than the watch on his wrist. It was like a sad IKEA display gone wrong. He looked around, clearly trying not to react. I understand you're upset with Zelina, he began, carefully sitting down on one of my chairs like it might collapse under him. And you have every right to be. What she did was disappointing. Disappointing? I let out a short laugh. Yeah. Finding your fiancée making out with her ex at your engagement party is kind of disappointing. He ignored the sarcasm. But people make mistakes, he continued calmly. And I know for a fact she regrets what happened. This situation could still be salvaged. I just stared at him for a second. Cut the crap, Attakis, I said finally. Why are you really here? He sighed like I was the difficult one. Look, our families were about to be joined, he said. I still consider you almost family, and I'd hate to see you struggle with your business when I could help. My business is doing fine, I replied, in the same tone you'd use to explain something simple to a child. It could be doing better, he said, leaning forward slightly. I have connections. High-end residential clients looking to go solar. The kind of projects that could really elevate your company. I narrowed my eyes. In exchange for what? Getting back with Zelina? Let me guess. We just pretend I didn't see her making out with her ex? Think of it as a fresh start, he said smoothly. People reconcile after mistakes all the time. I shook my head slowly. Yeah, that's going to be a no from me. And just like that, his expression changed. The mask slipped. I was trying to be reasonable, Jax, he said, his voice colder now. But since you mentioned the investigation into my company, you should understand that information like that could be damaging if it were to get out prematurely. I looked at him, disbelief turning into anger. Is that a threat? Because it sounds like a threat, just dressed up nicely. It's a reminder, he said coolly, that we all have vulnerabilities. Then he added, almost casually, your solar supplier? They receive financing through a subsidiary of my firm. One word from me, and your credit terms could become complicated. My stomach dropped. If my supplier pulled my credit terms, I was done. No materials, no projects, no business. So that's the real Attackus Bennett, I said quietly. Threatening someone's livelihood because your daughter couldn't keep her promises. Father of the Year. I prefer to think of it as protecting my family's interests, he replied, standing up. He straightened his jacket, completely composed again. Think about my offer. High-end clients in exchange for your discretion. And reconciliation with Zelina. Or choose the alternative. Then he walked out. After he left, I just sat there on my mattress, staring at the wall, trying to process how my life had somehow turned into a bad Netflix drama. For the next few hours, I started calling other suppliers, asking about pricing, availability, anything, trying to build some kind of backup plan. It would cost more, definitely, but maybe it was still possible, because the thought of going back to Zelina, of pretending none of this happened just to save my business. Yeah, I'd rather launch myself into the sun. So that's where things stand right now. I'm trying to figure out how to protect the business I built from scratch. From my ex's father and his threats. I've told a few close friends what's going on, but I'm not out there trying to destroy Zelina's reputation. I don't need to. The truth is already making its way out on its own. And the weird part? I'm not even angry at her anymore. I'm just relieved. Relieved I found out who she really was before I married her. But her dad? That's a different story. That situation has me stressed. This business isn't just mine, it supports my employees too. People depend on it. In a strange way, catching that kiss might have been the best thing that ever happened to me. But it also opened the door to a whole new mess I never saw coming. Funny how life works like that. Final update, hey again. It's been about 2 weeks since everything went down. So, the big event this weekend was Zelina's so-called Freedom Party. Her celebration of our breakup. I obviously didn't go, but I heard everything. And let me tell you, it did not go the way she probably imagined. According to Senna, Zelina showed up with Draven as her date and she was going around telling everyone. She went around telling everyone that I had been controlling and jealous, that she had finally escaped what she called a toxic relationship, painting herself as the victim, but about an hour into the party everything flipped when her dad showed up out of nowhere, walked straight onto the dance floor where Zelina and Draven were standing, and started shouting at them in front of everyone, calling Draven a worthless parasite and Zelina an ungrateful child, then announcing that her credit cards were canceled, her allowance was cut off, and she had exactly 2 weeks to move out of her apartment, and Zelina completely lost it, screaming back at him that he couldn't control her anymore while Draven just stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to do, until eventually the bouncers stepped in and kicked all 3 of them out, and the next morning I got a message from an unknown number, which turned out to be Zelina using someone else's phone, sending me a long emotional paragraph about how much she regretted everything, how Draven had manipulated her, how she had made the biggest mistake of her life and begging me to talk, But I didn't respond, and later that same day Nix called me and asked if I had heard what happened at the party. I told her I knew the basics from Senna, but she said there was more, that Draven had already tried crawling back to her, claiming Zelina was crazy, saying he made a mistake, insisting it was never serious and that they were just hooking up casually, that he never promised Zelina anything real, and when I asked what she said, Nix told me she shut him down and told him to get lost, but wanted me to know they were already turning on each other, and honestly it felt like karma doing its thing. But I still had this weight on my mind about my business and the threat from Attackus, so Monday morning when my main solar supplier called I was ready for the worst, thinking my credit line had been sabotaged. But instead they sounded positive, asking if everything was okay and even offering to increase my credit because of my solid payment history and growing projects, which completely caught me off guard. And later I found out why when someone I knew from another financial firm mentioned that Bennett Financial was dealing with serious compliance issues and Attackus was busy trying to stop clients from pulling out, meaning he had bigger problems than going after me. And that same evening Zelina messaged me again from her own number saying her dad had cut her off completely and that she needed to talk. But I blocked her again because at that point it wasn't my problem anymore. And the strangest part in all of this is that I'm actually doing better than I have in months. Like a weight I didn't even realize I was carrying has finally been lifted. I didn't understand how much energy I had been wasting trying to prove myself to Zelina and her family until I stopped, and now my business is growing. I've got my own place, even a dog, and maybe something new starting with Echo, and even though none of this is where I thought I'd be a month ago, I can honestly say I'm happier than I've been in a long time, because sometimes the worst moments in life end up pushing you towards something better, and if Zelina hadn't cheated I'd still be planning a future with someone who didn't truly love me. Only what I could offer her. But now I'm free to build something real for myself.